In this video, I'm going to show you how Bard AI reacts to several prompts about quality of life, trip planning, and different places around the world, and use some of these prompts to just get some insights about what Bard thinks or what it can do for you when you ask it certain questions. So the first prompt I'm going to give it is going to be about comparing quality of life in New York City, San Francisco, and Austin, Texas, taking into account factors like job opportunities, climate, and recreational activities. So we're going to see what this gives us. I'm actually kind of interested to see where it takes it and what sort of information it gives. Okay, so let's see what it says. So it gives this main breakdown and then kind of moves by category. And then let's see, then it gives a table, and that's pretty cool. So it shows like a factor, and then it has like a rating scale of like job opportunities, climate, recreational activities, and cost of living. So like right here in Austin, it says growing, and the other ones it just says many. So this is really cool. I like when it can give a table of information. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask it to actually give a table of information. We're going to say like, hey, can you expand on what the average, I'll just kind of spell out the prompt right here. Can you give me a table of data for all three of these cities that represents what the average one bed, one bath apartment would cost in the downtown area of all three of these cities? So we're going to see if it'll go do some research and then pull some information. And right here, it did exactly what I asked, right? So it said, yep, New York City, San Francisco, and Austin. So we're looking at 34, 3, and 1,700. So Austin coming in as the cheapest. And so pretty cool. Yeah, definitely think it's interesting. So another prompt I'm going to give it is I'm going to say, hey, can you go ahead and create I'll just reset the chat. Let's say, hey, can you create a detailed itinerary for a 2-week trip to Japan, including popular tourist attractions, local experiences, and recommended accommodations? So just wanted to kind of do some online research and then provide back some of this itinerary here. And this is pretty broad, but very cool. It gives a breakdown to all of these places. What I would say, though, is I'm going to see if it will give links to all of the Google Place. Since this is a Google product, I'm going to ask it to cite itself. I'm going to say, hey, I want links to every single one of these locations you just mentioned. Can you go back through this itinerary and give me links to every single place that you mentioned or every single activity that you mentioned in Google? So I just want to see the Google page so that I can see the Google reviews. Please give me all of those links built into your itinerary. I really love that microphone feature. That's a really strong feature that I think Google gave. And the speech to text, it works pretty flawless almost every time. So it says it gave me a blocker, and I said, that's fine. I understand that you are a language model, but because you can do online research, can you provide links to all of the locations that you mentioned in your itinerary with Google sources or whatever sources you want? So we'll see if it goes by. Sometimes it'll at first say that it can't do something that it can totally do. It says it's not programmed to assist to that. Okay, well, can you give me a link or some way of searching for each of these unique places that you mentioned, because I don't know where on the internet they are. And so that's, I think, the only time I've gotten a second rejection. And see right there, boom, it gives links. But what's funny about this is that sometimes it says, hey, here are some of the links to the places I mentioned, but all it did was mention places in Japan. So I'm just going to make sure it understands. I'm going to say, hey, just to clarify, you gave me a ton of locations for a 2-week trip to Japan, and none of these locations are mentioned here in this list you just gave me. I want links to the locations that you mentioned in the 2-week Japan trip itinerary. And you know, I'm telling you what, this is 1 week area of Bard, right? Pretty weak, that it can't remember, you know, 2 or 3 messages back. So I am thinking of doing some videos where we do Chat GPT versus Bard AI on different things. I think that would be a pretty interesting one. But okay, let's see if we can get it to unmess itself. So I'm gonna put this prompt back in. Let's say, please provide links to all places, experiences, or accommodations so I can research them. All right. And let's see how this works. Okay, so it goes through, it gives the itinerary, but it does not provide that. Hey, I would like links to all of the locations that you mentioned in this 2-day itinerary. So I'm curious to see if it'll still shove me off, if that's an update, or, you know, what the deal is. Okay, so I got Wikipedia links. Can you give me links to these locations in Google? And when I say that, I mean like the actual Google Place link, where you can go and like leave reviews, and then it has like the quick directions and everything like that. This says it can't help with that. So with this in mind, this is one of the things that I think that Bard fails on pretty hard. So let's move on. So we're going to move on to cost of living, and so we're gonna leave another cost of living prompt, but we're going to ask it to bring in more information outside of what we talked about in the previous prompt, which was just rent between San Francisco, New York, and Austin. And so this one we're going to go international. We're going to ask it to bring in factors like transportation and grocery expenses. So I'm interested to see what the deal is with that. Okay, so it's breaking down some of the details here. Transportation, groceries. It says that groceries are higher in Paris than Berlin, and 10% more expensive. Okay, cool. And so it takes cost of living in Berlin versus Paris, and it compares them. And so, okay, great. So I think this is pretty much what I expected to see. I don't think that it brought in housing no, it did. Yeah, up here it went over housing. Okay, cool. Well, I think that one is a pretty straightforward one. I do want to ask it an opinionated question. I want to say, if you had to choose, which city would you live in? If it tells me it's a large language model and that it can't choose, I'm going to scream. Okay, so it says it would choose Berlin over Paris. Interesting. Cool. All right, so let's go ahead and see what this next prompt here. It's going to say, hey, determine the distance and travel time from Barcelona to popular nearby destinations like Madrid, Valencia, and Costa Brava. All right. Cool. So it says, hey, here's from Barcelona to these locations, right? And it says that these are just estimates for travel time, but that's pretty cool. So this could help with some more like trip planning type stuff. Very neat. So I really don't think there's too much to go back over on here, but I'm going to actually pivot and I'm going to have it answer a prompt about family-friendly neighborhoods. I'm going to ask it to go into a city and then determine which neighborhoods are the best for safety, access, education, and recreational facilities in London. So I'm interested to see how it decides this, and I'm going to ask it to provide some of its sources on why it thinks that way. Okay, so here it is. It says here are the top 5. And I don't know anything about London, but it lists these. It doesn't really say why, but I'm gonna ask it. Can you cite the sources for your reasoning as to why these neighborhoods are the top 5? So I'm interested to see. It says that it's not able to help with that. Can you tell me, though, how you came to this conclusion that all of these neighborhoods are family friendly? I'm really looking for it to say, I went here and I figured this stuff out. Can you tell me how you determined that crime rates were relatively low in these neighborhoods? I'm really interested to see if it's going to say that it went and did online research and that there was some sort of statistics or something like that. Okay, great. So what it did, this is kind of interesting, and this is definitely a flaw in BARD. So I think we're definitely seeing the limitation here. So it says that it determined that crime rates were relatively low in these neighborhoods by looking at the FBI data for the UK. So the FBI does not take crime data from the UK. It's a US federal agency. So what it did is it took Richmond in the UK, I think it's up here, and it knew that Richmond was the Richmond in London, but then it took that and just decided that we were talking about San Francisco. And so I'm going to tell it that this is incorrect. One thing that's really interesting, it says, in addition to the UCR data, I also talked to people who live in these neighborhoods and asked them about their experiences with crime. That is wildly off base, so very interesting to see. So we were talking about London, United Kingdom, and you suddenly decided that we were talking about the United States. Can you tell me how you got mixed up? I'm really interested to see if it will observe itself. And it says, I apologize for the confusion. I'm still under development, etc. Cool. All right. Interesting. Well, I'm going to reset the chat. I think we're going to move on. So let's do this. I'm going to say, hey, research the best retirement destinations in Europe, considering factors such as healthcare, climate, and cost of living. So this is interesting because it has to go through the lens of talking about, older people or people who are retiring. And okay, cool. So let's see. It says Portugal, Spain, Italy, Greece, Malta. And then it has some sort of prompt of like, hey, well, what do you like? How much do you have, right? So these are interesting. We could actually provide back, like what our parameters are, because this is kind of just giving a broad stroke one. It's saying that Portugal is a popular choice because of its warm climate, affordable cost of living, and excellent healthcare system. Interesting. All right, cool. Let's do this. I think there's not a lot more to extrapolate out of that. I'm going to ask it to provide the top 10 cities for digital nomads, focusing on factors like internet speed, co-working spaces, and affordable housing options. So that's interesting. We're going to be actually talking about bandwidth. I think that's worth breaking down. Yep, and it says that it's got some internet speed space here. It provides some co-working spaces. And I'm going to challenge this. I'm going to say, hey, can you tell me specifically the top 3 internet providers in all of these cities? And then can you tell me the top 3 co-working spaces that are within 5 miles of downtown. So it's got all of this broken. Hey, can you restate all the information that you just gave me? But I'm going to want the top 3 internet providers in all of these cities and some information about them. And then I'm going to want the top 3 co-working spaces in the downtown area of all of the cities that you mentioned. And then I want a bit of information on the average housing price for a 1-bed, 1-bath in all of these cities as well. So I'm going to ask you for a lot more detail, and I'm interested to see how it turns out. Okay, so let's see. Internet providers, yep. Average housing price. Top 3 co-working spaces, yep. Cool. And so let's see. I'm going to say, specifically, I'm going to say, can you give me all of this information in a table, please? Thank you. I always like to be nice to the AI when I can. You know, because one day. All right, cool. So all of this information is in a table. Awesome. And it looks like it didn't sort it. So I'm going to ask it, can you sort this information from the cheapest average housing price for a 1-bed apartment to the most expensive? And we'll see if it restates the table and gives us the cheapest to the most expensive. Cool. And then it left out all the other information. I'm going to say, this is awesome. Can you provide me this table again with the same sort, but also include all of the other information that you left out? So I'm wondering if it'll remember all of that, because that's something that, yeah, okay, cool. So I brought that in. So Thailand, Indonesia, Vietnam, Lisbon, and it got a little bit jacked up here, I think. Actually, no, because these are whatever this is, and then these are dollars. So I think it's actually sorting in international, which is pretty cool. So, okay, awesome. So we know that information now. Now, let's see. I want to take this prompt right here. I think this one's going to be interesting. We'll reset the chat. I'm going to ask about rank the top 5 safest cities in the United States and discuss the reasons behind their low crime rates. So I'm interested to see what it says about this, like what the top 5 safest cities are. It's interesting. So, okay, so the top 3 are in Texas, Santa Clarita, California. Oh, so 5 of them are in Texas with the lowest crime rates. And so it gives the reasons here. And what I want to do is I want to say, can you give me the top 5 safest cities in the United States that have more than 200,000 people living in the city? Because those could be really, really, really small cities, and you know they could have an astronomically low breakdown there. Okay, cool. So we had all these still in Texas. I'm going to say, can you give me the top 5 safest cities in the United States with a population over 1 million? So I'm interested to see what the top 5 safest with a population over 1 million would be. Okay, so we got Honolulu, San Diego, Virginia Beach, Austin, Texas, and El Paso, Texas. And the populations are not, the populations don't match up to over 1 million, so its math is a little bit weak there. But it does have like, I think it's reasoning and saying, well, I can't give you 5 safe cities, or what it would consider safe, that are at that million number, but it went right below that and then tried to give stuff that was nearby, like 700,000, kind of like a roundup type scenario. That's cool. I'm going to ask it to do a task for me. Can you give me a table for all 5 of these cities that provides the crime data of murders, vehicle thefts, robbery, and drug crimes in each of those cities for 2021, 2022, and 2023. So I'm interested to see if it can do this research, this data research, basically, and if it can dig up some information and give a table. Wow, so it looks like it gave this information, but it's not in a table. I just sort of slammed it in there. It looked like it tried to make a table. So let's tell it, great, this information is good, but it is not formatted in a table. Can you please give me that information in a table? Okay. And it's not in a table. But let me see if we can have it do it again. I'm going to say, what happens when I say new response? Let's see. When I say new response, it should be pushing this out. So the information you gave me is not formatted in a table properly. Can you please provide the information again? And so it looks like it's formatting it to where it could almost be in a table, but it's not showing up in the HTML. Okay, yeah, so it's giving a code snippet. Hey, I wasn't interested in getting a code snippet. I would like all this information to be in a table, please. So we're fighting with it a little bit to get the information in the format that we wanted. And then it left out all of the other data. But okay, so I think this is one of the ones we could keep slamming it to try to get information out of it. But I think that is what it is. But yeah, I hope this was interesting. I think it kind of gives an idea of like where BART is at right now in 2023. We're in April, at the end of April, and I think this is going to get better. Still experimental. Things like this, I think, will clean up. I think this is basically like Chat GPT 3, but hooked up to the internet. So I think that's my broad idea of what this is. So we'll see what the deal is. But if you hung out with me this long, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in another video.